Also on the footage, you will see the camera is pointed up into the sky at about a 30-degree angle towards Las Vegas, just to the left of the base. The camera was then turned on and basically left unattended for about 45 minutes or so when I was off talking to someone, and you'll see three ships. One actually comes in from the right and makes a quick sort of looping horseshoe motion. Another one will then come in from the upper right-hand corner of the screen, which then comes in, and you can tell that the ship itself is having some sort of unusual electromagnetic effect because the videotape begins to blur and buzz as the electromagnetics of the flying saucer actually begin to blur the iron pyrite on the videotape. That this object then comes in a loop, does a step motion, and then shoots off to the right, traveling from 0 to about 40,000 miles an hour. And a third object that then simply comes in from out of hyperspace, where the object comes in literally from out of nowhere in a small circle, which you'll see if you slow the film down, solidifies into a disc-shaped object, does another step motion, and then goes from 0 to 40,000 miles an hour out of the frame. The last thing you'll see on the tape is an actual close-up taken from about 6 miles away with a 12 zoom lens with about 3 lux on the camera, a close-up of the ship. What you'll see is that the ship itself looks like a bat wing almost. It looks like sort of like the bat plane, because the camera, when it's on infinity, looking or zooming in on an object that's that far away, takes those bites out of the object. But what in fact is happening is that you'll see that at a distance the object will pulse, and that as the camera then moves in, you will see what looks like clouds in front of the object, but that in fact is the energy field or the gravity field, quite literally, of the object spinning around the object, and you'll see it looking as though it's clouds moving in front of the object. Then you'll see the object move up to the right, drop down out of the frame, and then reappear in the lower left-hand section. Directly after this occurred, I gave the camera to a girl that was at the mailbox. I jumped in my car and chased after this object. Very soon, about 3 miles out into the desert, a couple of military vehicles came from out of the desert with their lights off, a black Bronco and a flatbed olive drab truck, a 4x4 cab truck. They pulled out and met another vehicle in front of the road. All three of these vehicles then turned around, and the light bars, they lit up the entire area. And in essence, when I got out of my car, they pointed guns at me, and they told me to get back in my vehicle and go back to the road, or I would be shot, in essence. So I got back in my car and went back and turned around, because apparently they probably had some kind of problems with this particular craft, and it had probably landed on the civilian side of the middle of the Tikaboo Valley.
We have to understand one fact, that Area 51 has 3 tiers of security systems. The outer perimeter security, the inner security, and also the regular military security, plus automated security system. We're talking about outer perimeter security. Area 51 is using semi-private security firms such as Wackenhut Corporation. We call them Wackenhut SS because basically it's the way they operate. Wackenhut SS, of course, means Wackenhut Special Securities Corporation, of course, and they are assigned to guard the outer perimeters of Area 51. And they, because of the status of being a semi-private status, they don't wear any insignias of any kind. They wear military camouflage uniforms and carry machine guns and so on. They ride unmarked four-wheel blazer type vehicles, and they harass citizens who even dare to drive on any of these dirt roads south of the Highway 375. We have every right to be driving on these public lands as long as we don't cross the warning sign area. We were harassed by dangerously maneuvering helicopter over public land on May 16th, 1991. A group of us, altogether 18 of us, were in a 7-car caravan just coming back on Groom Road after taking pictures of the warning sign area. We were coming back to Highway 375, but suddenly we heard a thunderous sound overhead, as if a railroad was passing over our cars. When we looked up, there was this military helicopter that appeared and came about 5 to 8 feet above our cars on purpose, harassing us, intimidating us, and for the next 15 to 16 minutes, we were trying to get away from this helicopter. We were frantically trying to drive and go away from this area, and we were buzzed by this helicopter continuously for 15 minutes. In one occasion, this helicopter circled around as we were driving and came front of our cars at almost low level and just scared us and continued this illegal maneuvering, endangering our lives.
Where is it? Where is it? There it is.
Jeez. How can you see anything with that?
It went behind the mountain. There it is. There it is.
Huh? Yeah, it's test flying. It's going to continue for the next stop.
Wait, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's flying over there.
Yeah, it's moving back and forth.
Take a look at here. Yeah, take a look at it. It's a light. See, when I see it, it's dark rock.
It's hovering over there.
I had to put the gain on just to see it. Boy, my battery.
Yeah, right.
Fortunately, this isn't doing me any good.
Yeah.
He's doing a maneuver on it. See, when I see it, it'll go back up.
I think so.
Who's that, Gary? Tell him to shut up.
I can't look when he's talking. It's like damn funny. You seen it doing zigzags before?
Yeah, it's flying all right.
The UFO, which yet was filmed by the Japanese television crew that night, was analyzed by Nippon Television with the help of latest state-of-the-art computers. The result? It's definitely no conventional aircraft.
It was upset for us.
たち取材班が撮影した飛行物体もコンピューター解析してみた。エリア51に現れた例の光る物体は、その明るさの度合いを細かな色に分けて表示するとこのような姿になる。一方その後同じ場所から撮った車のヘッドライトは明るさがこのような構成になり比較することができる。これはその光の明るさが時間によってどのように変化するかを大きさで示したもので、ヘッドライトの場合かなり変化するものということがわかる。一方エリア51で撮られた光る物体は常に同じ大きさで明るさが変わらない。やはり普通の物体とは全く違うものなのではないだろうか。
But also around Las Vegas, unknown flying objects are regularly observed.
I took my wife to work one morning, and on the way back, I was looking out the windows I usually do, and I carry my camera with me quite often. And I saw this anomaly, this UFO in the sky, and so I stopped my car and pulled out and took some footage of it, which is what you're looking at now, I guess. That's about it. And it came on 2 different mornings, as a matter of fact. So on 2 different mornings, I took pictures of it. This was in 1991, and it was, actually, we've seen a lot of things around Las Vegas here. It's a great area to spot UFO objects. I've seen cigar-shaped UFOs, I've seen the regular discs, and I've seen anomalies of all styles and types around here. I've spent many a night, all night, up looking for UFO things in the sky.
One morning when I woke up, I was drawing the curtains of the window, and it was a cloudy day, but clear. And they looked just like bowler hats, dull grey, no windows, no wheels, no nothing, just looked like a bowler hat, metal, definitely metal. There was 2 of them. One was flying in a steady fashion, and the other one, it looked like the pilot was drunk because it was just flying this way. And they went down behind some apartments, which were only about 100 yards away from me. That I was impressed with. I told my wife about it, and she gave me a strange look. And 2 weeks to the day, she was at the same window, saw the same things, and called me at work. And she was gibbering away, and I said, yeah. And from then on, we'd seen quite a few. I spent a lot of time out in the desert with my camera, and I got rather obsessed with it for a while. But as you'll see in some of the other footage of what I've got, it's quite interesting, and it's definitely unexplained. It happened when I was at work. It was a Sunday, and it was close to 7 o'clock. And for some reason, I just took my camera to the parking garage roof and started filming what you see here, which are 2 remote type objects sort of dancing around. And in a little while you'll see another craft come along underneath. It's a little larger, and it's very stable, and this guy's steadily heading north. These 2 which are dancing around seem to interact with it, and then it goes on its way. A few minutes later, another craft comes along the base part of the mountain, and in between that, an aeroplane going in to land at McCarran Airport goes past, so you get a good idea of the size and the distance. And then these 2 objects again interact with this large craft, and as you'll see towards the end of the tape here, I follow it round to see where the craft went to, and it's totally out of sight. It's vanished.
Did you recognize more details when visible before?
No, not really. No. It was just close to dusk. They were just lights in the sky. It's slightly delta-shaped, I think the objects are. That's how they appear anyway, when I zoom in.
Obviously, the Lazar UFOs were just the tip of an iceberg. A black world, as fantastic as a fairy tale country or a faraway planet. Yet committed researchers try to trace down the last mystery of these super-secret test flights.
By looking at the maps and by discussing things not only with the sheriffs, but also with friends of mine, I found a mountaintop in which you can actually climb to the top of the mountain, and it's about an hour and a half hike or so. It's about 7 miles to the top of a mountain which we call Morton's Mountain, since I was the one that first found it. Climb up to the top of the mountain, and this is where you get this spectacular view of virtually the entire base. You can see this particular video was taken at night, so because of the fact that we were very afraid of being caught out there still during the day, because we weren't really sure whether or not we were over the military's border or not. At about 6 a.m. every morning, they were sending helicopters out, literally chasing us around if we were anywhere near their border. And the evening times, they would send out the security vehicles, the Bronco security vehicles, who would do everything from take down our license plate numbers to actually go through our cars to looking for us in the desert, thinking that we were actually stepping across their border. This videotape comes from our efforts, literally risking our lives at that time to be able to get a good view inside this probably one of the most top secret facilities the United States has above ground. Specifically what you're looking at is you're looking at Area 51 at night, taken at around dusk. You're also looking at another section of the video which was work that looks like was going on the runway. Now for some reason the military was carrying out some kind of either construction operation at night. Now there seems to be a huge halogen lamp that's illuminating part of the field in which you'll see smaller lights, which are trucks and jeeps basically coming and going from this light. You'll see on the film what we thought originally was a ship actually coming on and testing and moving around on the floor of the valley. It didn't really move that much at night, so that's why we concluded that it must have been some sort of halogen work lamp. You'll see for the first time the object which is called Old Faithful. Now Old Faithful is called that because something appears in the sky over Area 51 at 4:50 a.m. virtually every Thursday morning. Now many times this object is preceded by what in California have become known as skyquakes. There is a very large object which we've witnessed out there between 700 and 800 feet long, and this object literally comes in from space, traveling anywhere between Mach 10 and about Mach 18, flies over Catalina Island, over Southern California, and then lands at Area 51. This particular object that you're seeing, we theorize, is what's known as Project Senior Prom, which is underneath the Project Aurora banner, and that this object is in fact an unmanned 132 nuclear weapon carrying nuke platform that in essence orbits the planet to be able to rain down nuclear bombs on virtually any country at the push of a button. This object, as it's landing, you'll see it appear in the sky, very dramatic footage of the first time anything has ever been shot actually physically landing at 51. The object appears at exactly 4:50 a.m., comes down in a conventional flight pattern. Now sometimes this object will shake back and forth violently, displaying all the characteristics of a, quote, conventional UFO, unquote. And on this particular occasion, it comes all the way down in a very straight line. You'll see a field around the outside of the object, and when it comes down between two safety lights, you'll see it actually physically land, and then when it comes past a second set of safety lights, the field around the ship actually blinks off, and then you can see that it is some sort of unusual dart-shaped aircraft, some sort of experimental aircraft, because it does have wheels on it, and it does appear to have a fuselage that comes up in a point with a light at the top and at the bottom, and then comes back at the bottom. So it is a very unusual ship, and this particular ship was in fact preceded by one of the famous Southern California skyquakes.
Rachel is a small desert nest at the Highway 375, which passes the Black World. Its inhabitants are mainly workers of the test site. Rachel's main attraction is the Little Ale Inn, the local grill and beer bar owned by Pat and Joe Dravers, which became the main information exchange for Area 51 enthusiasts from all over the world. It not only exhibits UFO memorabilia, it also houses a library and a large collection of newspaper articles about secret government experiments documenting that the greatest secret of our time actually is no secret anymore. Aviation expert and writer Jim Goodall was one of the first to lift the veil of silence.
I am a published author. I've written for 3 different publications. I have a number of articles on black programs and secret projects for Jane's Defense Weekly, for Interavia, for Aviation Week Space Technology. I have 3 books right here that I have authored just on the F-117 alone. That is where I spend all my spare time, is digging. I've had my neighbors questioned, I've had my mail opened, I've had my phones tapped. I was called up for Desert Shield. I'm in the Air National Guard. They held up my clearance at the Pentagon. They didn't deny my clearance, they held it up because I asked too many questions of my government. And my response was, that is my job. As an American taxpayer, it's my job to question my government whenever I feel it fit, and I do. And I make a lot of enemies, and I'm referred to as that SOB from Minnesota. I have quite a reputation in the Pentagon for being able to dig up information when no one else can. What's going on in Area 51 today, based on information from first-person interviews I've made over the last 6 or 7 years, there are at least 8 black programs flying out of Groom Lake, out of Area 51. That does not count the B-2 bomber because it's not a black program. It does not count the F-117, which is virtually a white program today. There are at least 2 very, very high-speed aircraft that have been reported since 1982 is when we've heard the first reports of them. One of them is a small aircraft. It goes approximately Mach 4 to Mach 6. There's an aircraft that has been tracked out of the Bay Area TRACON in Oakland, California by the Federal Aviation Administration Center at least 8 times since 1986, flying in excess of 10,000 miles an hour going through controlled airspace, and a very, very large aircraft at that. Besides the 2 high-speed aircraft, there is a stealth or low observable electronic warfare aircraft. It's been referred to as Excalibur. There is an aircraft that is designed to fly very, very high, but very, very slow and very, very quiet. There's been some rumblings or reports as a flying triangle, much like the canceled McDonnell Douglas General Dynamics A-12 that was going to be an attack aircraft. Just recently, out of Lancaster, California, taken off from Palmdale, which is Air Force Plant 42, and that's where the B-1 was built. The B-2 bomber is being built there. The F-117 is being serviced there in the U-2 operations. There has been at least 3 sightings of triangular-shaped aircraft being launched out of that area. They made no noise, and people just happened to look up and see these things leaving the area at relatively low altitude, but again, no noise.
Are there any unconventional technologies, propulsion technologies involved?
Yes, I have had the opportunity over the years to interview, again, people who have worked at the test site at Groom Lake. One gentleman spent 12 of his 30 years in black programs at Groom Lake. When I asked him, I said, first of all, I said, do you believe in UFOs? And he looked at me with a straight face in one-on-one, and he said, absolutely, positively, they do exist. I said, can you expand upon that? And he said, no, I can't. About A year later, we were talking about, again, activities at Groom Lake. And I asked him, I said, you know, can you really tell me what's happening out there? And he said, well, there's a lot of things that are going on there that I won't be able to tell you until the year 2025. But we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envious. Another individual who was an NCO, an E9, which is the highest grade you can get as an enlisted man. He's a Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. Was a safety specialist. He had 3 different tours of duty at Groom Lake on various programs. Now, he had no connection with my friend who worked on the other black programs. We were talking, I interviewed him at Nellis in 1985, 86 time frame. And I said, what's out there? And again, he looked me straight in the eye and he said, we have things out there that are literally out of this world. I said, explain. He said, I can't. But trust me, see, we have things that are better than Star Trek, better than anything you can see in the movies. He said, are the airplanes? He said, I can't comment.
There's 4 levels in Site 4, excluding the top level, the surface, which is basically a hangars with the satellite. There's really not too much to it, but the levels are all operated. There's the first and second levels are all elevator where they keep the flying disc, ships, whatever you call it. They bring it to the surface. Right when I was there, they were trying to operate the disc, but to my viewing, unsuccessfully. There's scientists there. I've personally witnessed high White House officials being there. Right now I'm basically kind of scared. I mean, I'm on the run. I don't know what everything holds for me. I just want to get this out in the open.
A security guard at level 2 of S4 in Area 51. And he described Area S4 as a facility occupying at least 4 levels. He was aware of 4. He worked on level 2. He had passed through level 1. He never saw level 3 or level 4 because no military people were allowed below those levels. Only people with very specific clearances could go to level 3 and level 4. He described level 2 in considerable detail to us, and he said level 2 consisted of 9 hangar bays, I guess you would call them, because they were the size, they would hold a small airplane. And there were circular disc-shaped craft in 7 of the 9 bays. He described the floor layout, he described the security posts, the guard positions, an area where bodies were stored in large glass cylinders. He described special equipment, he described the monitoring equipment, the security system to go down to levels 3 and 4. He said that they were never allowed down there. Only specially cleared people with very specific clearances, which included a plastic card with magnetic information in it, a handprint, and a right eye retina scan, and put their eye to a little camera. And if they passed, they could go down. If not, their instructions were to arrest them immediately and have somebody from above come down and get them.
This is a very vast complex.
Big place, huh?
Big place. The elevators are right here. There's 4 elevators. 3 and 4 are extremely security. There are no sentries down at 3 or 4. And the levels of 3 and 4, I don't know what goes on down there. I heard something about an EBI or EB down there. I'm not too familiar with what it is, but as you get off the elevators, you get off, and this is level 2. You walk in, the bays are over here. They're all separated by like an automatic doors that open and close each bay. Walk down, there's 5 on each side. There's a hallway right there, and each of these bays have elevators that'll bring them all the way to the top. It'll bring the whole floor all the way up with a hydraulic system. Now, as you walk down, there's a lot of machinery right here, which I have no recollection of what it does. I believe I've never been in that area. My job was to be a sentry for these 3 gates and up above in the level complex, and sometimes I would be walking down here escorting people. Now, over on this, there's a hallway down here that breaks off, which is there's a big computer system right here. I believe it's a computer system. I'm not going to say for sure. Right here is a level. There's 7 tubes. These tubes are about 2 feet in width. They're about 6 feet in height.
They stand on end.
They stand on end on end. Now, as you walk in and you look at these tubes, I'm just going to go push a 1. They're all exactly the same, and the creatures inside are completely identical. There's absolutely no way that I can see of identifying each and every one of them individually. Now there's an aluminum part right here. I don't know if it's covering the genitals of them or not, but the rest is filled with the solution. There's a couple tanks right here. I don't know if they're oxygen. I don't know what they hold. There's no identifying marks on them whatsoever. There's absolutely no air in the tanks. It's all solution. And the grays are just in here, right here. They're suspended, so I imagine they're being clamped somehow, some way to hold them in this completely, where their feet is completely off the ground and stuff like that. And under here, there's about a 1-foot pedestal of black iron steel, it's polished, but it looks like a black polished anodized iron. Now the things inside, resemble what everybody sees, and the only thing that's different about them from what I see on all the pictures is the eyes appear to be have deteriorated, or they look like prunes. They're like your fingers get pruned. They're all shriveled up, and you can't see no eye sockets, and there's no visible eyelids or anything like that. They have a grayish, a grayish pigmentation. It's not scaly or anything. It's like a pigmentation. There's no apparent hair on them. There's little holes, not really slits, but a little hole, maybe an ear cartilage. I don't know if you're hearing. The slits are really kind of small for the nose and the mouth. The bodies themselves are very, very thin. They appear not to have any breast or navel or anything like that. Not that I can see. Yeah. I wasn't able to sit and study them in full view for a while. I don't think I have heard talk there that I know their systems aren't like ours. But they're very thin and they look very, very frail.
What convinced you that Hennessy told you the truth?
We only have looking him in the eye and talking to him. We've analyzed his voice during the narration. Doesn't show any signs of stress. We've heard rumors of some details inside from others that has never been released or published. So unless they were on the inside circle and knew what was being held back, most people would never know the information that he gave us. Most of the information that he gave us checked with other information we already had, and it has checked since with other information that we have acquired since the time we interviewed him.
Mr. Morton, you came in contact with a sergeant who worked at Area 51.
Yes, I was on an American television program called Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion, and at the end of the program they gave my telephone number. This gentleman contacted me through that telephone number and related to me that he was in fact a master sergeant at Area 51 for over 12 years, and that everything that had to be taken in and out of the base or transported from one place to another on the facility had to go across his desk. Of course, the man had a very high-level, top-secret clearance. He gave me his name, he gave me a military ID number, which I was able to check, and his military ID did in fact check out that he had worked at Nellis Air Force Base and had then worked at the Area 51 facility. He told me a number of very interesting things about how the facility was laid out, how many levels the facility had, how it was connected to other facilities, and he asked me a number of questions about things that he didn't really know about, just stuff that he had seen going across his desk, and was curious about how certain things work. So there was an exchange of information between he and I. It is unfortunate that he seems to have disappeared. He seems to have moved with no forwarding address. His telephone number no longer works. I was in contact with him for quite a period of time, and then the man simply vanished.
Did he ever see alien spaceship or alien bodies?
On many occasions, he told me, Chip is what he called himself, that he had in fact transported disc-like saucers, what he considered to be alien spacecraft. And remember, he was not sure if they were alien or not. He never saw the actual paperwork on the craft. He was only responsible for transporting the objects from place to place. However, he did transport a number of very large 30 to 60 foot disc-shaped craft. He was responsible for transporting some bell-shaped objects. He said when they were at rest that they were a very dull gunmetal color. He did in fact witness on a number of occasions the tests of these craft, because they would have to cart them out to a certain place and then they take them off, and then the objects would then fly around. And he was asking me how something that looked so dead and so lifeless could then glow up the way that it did, and the metal on the ship would actually look as though it was alive. As far as the alien bodies were concerned, he told me that Area 51 had 5 underground levels to it. This was confirmed by 3 other sources that I had at the facility. He also claimed that there were not only living aliens on the base that he not only saw, because he was responsible for transporting them physically by jeep from one place to another, but also that he saw a number of alien bodies in very large tanks, that the tanks had a silver backing to them, that they had a silver strips across the middle and the bottom of the tank. They were filled with a blue liquid. He said that he personally saw 5 different tanks that had these alien bodies in them, the classic little gray bodies, the 3.5 to 4 feet tall, but that they also had 4 humanoid aliens that were had blondish and reddish hair. Very little was unusual about them that would demarcate them from actual humans, but he was told that these were actual alien bodies, supposedly, and this was his speculation now, but he said that they were supposedly from the Pleiades.
There are many underground alien facilities, and they're all over the place. There's also many underground U.S. facilities. In 1960, it became apparent to the military that if they were going to have any significant covert operations, they were going to have to be underground. The reason was people are extremely observant. They notice everything that's going on. And if there was going to be huge transportation of materials, men, equipment, all kinds of stuff, that it was going to be have to be underground. There was a major meeting with all the major contractors, the big contractors like Morrison Knudsen and those type of people. And the meeting included the highly specialized area of underground operations, as far as drilling down there, how you move that kind of dirt. And they started then, basically in 1960, building all these underground facilities. Right now, they're just all over the United States. It's just incredible how many there are. There's a network of tunnels that connects Edwards Air Force Base with the Tehachapi Base, with Tonopah Test Range, Groom Lake, George Air Force Base, California City, China Lake. It's a tremendous network. I have varied and many people who have told me that they exist, that they have been down there. I have a friend that is a hydraulic engineer on one of the tunnel boring machines. It's 28 feet in diameter. He works at the Nevada test site where the tunnels go down almost 3,000 feet.
In addition to this, I have had a number of ex-military persons, engineers who've worked in the aerospace industry, for the aerospace companies out in the Antelope Valley, such as Lockheed, Northrop, Rockwell, who have related to me their knowledge of underground facilities. Not in all cases have they revealed what they knew about alien life forms or alien technology, but they said that these underground facilities exist without a doubt. Okay, that many aerospace companies have these facilities, that most of our Air Force bases, our naval bases, have these type of facilities underground, and that ultra-secret work goes on in secure underground facilities. Now, our difficulty has been in trying to come up with the evidence that these facilities are connected with the UFO phenomena. So we have had to approach this not only from the viewpoint of listening to testimony, but keeping some of these facilities under surveillance so that we can take cameras up there or any means that we can to record phenomena that seem to be emanating from or associated with these facilities. And that has been done. And people have reported seeing classic UFO phenomena around these facilities.
There are 4 aerospace covert facilities. This is what we call the aerospace connection in the Antelope Valley and also the San Joaquin Valley. Rockwell in the San Joaquin, Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, and Northrop in the Antelope Valleys. And these operations are extremely suspicious. They have a surface cover activity. They call themselves RCS testing sites. That stands for radar cross-section. And apparently their presumed purpose is to test various aeroform designs atop pylons with radar cross-section. And the disturbing part is that we have found out with incontrovertible proof that there are extensive underground facilities. And for example, Northrop, we have documented to have 42 levels underground. Now, if this is radar cross-section testing, which is above ground, why do they need 42 levels underground? Also, at the Lockheed facility out in Hellendale, we had an investigative reporter who saw a blueprint of the building plans for that facility that he wasn't supposed to see. It showed that they had an extensive underground facility 300 feet down. And when this reporter interviewed the person who was in charge of that facility, they had a nice, pleasant interview until at the end he told the director that he was aware of this extensive underground facility. And what could he tell him about that? And immediately the man's eyes grew wide and he said, "This interview is terminated." So it's very suspicious. And then of course we have other reports of people in the area who say that they have seen alien craft emanating from these facilities and terminating at these facilities. And other kinds of blue beams, strange lights in the sky, surveillance orbs the size of basketballs, medicine balls that survey the area.
and move in ways that we don't possess that kind of technology. In terms of the Northrop facility, which is also known as the Anthill, the construction, the underground facility was greatly enlarged in the early 80s. And what took place there was an enlargement, I understand, from 13 levels underground to 42 levels underground. And we have reports from construction workers who actually worked on the site, cement truck drivers, and at one point, Michael, cement trucks suddenly appeared on the scene 5 miles long, pouring concrete continuously 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for weeks. And we figure at 3 yards of concrete, 9 yards of concrete per truck, close to 1 million yards of concrete must have been poured underground. Also, we understand from the construction workers that 3 silos were constructed there, 3 underground silos, and we were bringing out the fact that saucers have been seen to just come screaming out of the facility as if they had had some travel distance underground. And also craft would, like helicopters, would come into the facility and just disappear into the ground. So we knew from construction reports and from visual reports outside the facility that something very suspicious in the way of silos was going on. Norio and I put together the first investigative team to actually fly over these facilities and investigate them from the air with video cameras, still camera shots. It was very exciting. And on our first flyover of the Northrop facility, we spent about an hour in the air on that trip. It was historic. You can imagine that my heart practically jumped out of my mouth when we're flying over, and the pilot, unsolicited, says to me, "By the way, there are 3 silos down there." Now, I had learned from my inside contacts that 3 silos had been constructed there. And I was looking for those silos the minute we appeared over the facility. I was intensely looking for 3 silos, didn't see any, and suddenly the pilot says to me, "What I just told you." I was shocked. I tried to contain my excitement, and I pretended to be rather casual about it, and I said, "I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, but did you say silos down there?" And he says, "Oh yes." He says, "You see those white diamonds?" And sure enough, there were 3 white diamonds. Now this pilot, you must understand, we rented the plane in the Antelope Valley, so he flies that area continuously. He has students, he's a pilot instructor. So he's flying over there all the time. He told me that on numerous occasions when he's flown over these facilities, those white diamonds, the white covering, will be gone to reveal a deep, dark hole or silo into the ground.
Not only the black projects, but deep black projects program that is taking place about 10 miles south of Groom Lake. Groom Lake facility, of course, is a black projects program that is, technologically speaking, not in line with higher technology that is present 10 miles south, which is located on Papoose Lake facility. That is where a new type of propulsion system is being test flown, and again, it's my contention that some select U.S. pilots are being given instructions on maneuvering these objects. We have, from all types of reports and sources, this established this one fact, is that there is some type of pumpkin seed program. This is a nickname of a new type of propulsion system using pulse detonation system. And this is known as the pumpkin seed program because these objects they have almost like a diamond-shaped the form to this. Now, this is part of the Black Projects program. However, what I've been investigating is more than that. It's the Super Deep Black Projects program, which could possibly involve technology much higher than this type of pulse propulsion system. which could be antimatter or some type of anti-matter, as Mr. Lazar has been stating. The sources of our information are not only from researchers that have received a lot of infos through Aerospace Connection. We have been in touch with several persons that confirm that Black Project program is ongoing at Groom Lake facility, Papoose Lake facility, plus other facilities such as in California. The Northrop, McDonnell Douglas, and Lockheed, all of these facilities are conducting some type of testing of certain type of aeroforms that resemble almost a disc. And it's possible, very possible, that the technology behind this could be received from some intelligence, not necessarily us. In other words, we're talking about something possible transfer of technology.
After I had, of course, got out of the service, I worked for the government, you know, as a test pilot on various different particular aircraft. While I did that particular activity, I was asked if I would mind working on some simulators, and I thought that was a good idea, good for my future, so I did. We were then reassigned. It was just not myself, it was several other fellows like myself, engineers, that were reassigned to certain companies here in the United States on the various different simulators that they were making for the various new aircrafts that they were building. For example, you know, the F-89, F-94, and F-102, and a group of others. We spent probably close to 3.5, 4 years just in training on simulators and just exactly, you know, how a simulator, an actual simulator for these aircraft worked, you know, and the new designs as they came along. After they thought that we were trained sufficiently, then we were asked to do another project, which was more or less in my field as mechanical design. That was to join metal together without glue, nuts, you know, or any adhesives, so forth, you know, for aircraft purposes. The indication was to make the aircraft lighter, okay? This of course, was several years going on. In the meantime, of course, security classifications were going on, you know, as far as we were concerned, and just the individuals that were going to work on these particular projects before going to the actual facility where I had done this activity. We developed this particular process of joining this material. It took quite some time, over a period of about 4 years. And then it was indicated to us that we'd go on a special project in New Mexico, which we did. And it was about 3 or 4 years after we had gotten there that we found out that these were simulators that we would be engineers on simulators for flying discs. Those, one particular project they worked on associated with that disc was several years, of course. It's very time-consuming in a translation of scientific data as provided to us by the grays, a specific type of gray. As this information was given to our scientists and various different engineers that we had no association with, but they were doing what they call a copy engineering. The copy engineering was a process where they had taken an item or a portion of the craft and they were disassembling it, writing their procedures and identifying certain things as they took it apart and how it related to from their science to our science, and could we use that. I spoke in a little lecture here a while back that no average pilot could fly a flying disc because it was so complicated and so foreign to the individual pilot that there would be no way that he'd be able to hop in one even if they gave it to them and said, here, fly this. Consequently, what we did, we took their avionics and transferred it to our science and our technology and used the avionics that we know of as far as aircraft is concerned. The basic principles in all this, as far as the avionics was concerned, was no different than a regular aircraft that we have. If you understand that, say for example, a fighter aircraft, it's much different than a flying disc. There were certain situations that we had to resolve, and basically we only looked at a couple different things because the flying disc only flies in about 3 different positions, and that is at 65 degrees, flat horizontal, and possibly vertical. But it was very difficult to fly vertical. The avionics that we developed for that was for the 65 degrees, pitch and yaw, and flat flight.
Did you ever see a disc by yourself?
I saw a disc from a distance.
Can you describe
Not
it?
up close.
Can you describe it?
If I was describing a disc for you so you'd understand what we were looking at, if you did see the Bob Lazar poster, very, very similar. This facility I was worked at is I'd say, as far as secrecy is concerned, is much tighter than possibly even Nellis here and some of the other facilities, you know, in this country. The entrance and the locations and the scenario on say, hey guys, you know, here this is, you know, this is what the ship looks like. It's okay. That's what the ship looks like. As far as entering the ship, no. But that was a disc.
How far away was it?
Oh, I was, say, 10 or 15 feet away.
Was it flying or standing on the ground?
It was just sitting on the ground, on its belly.
What did you feel in the moment when you saw it? What was your impression of it?
I had, my impression was, as an engineer, was just great.
Have you ever seen any aliens?
We were introduced to grays that were associated with the project, but they were, I could say that in the time that I spent, maybe I've seen the grays a half a dozen times or more, but no more than 10 times, I think. But they were on, the reason that we saw them was actually for us to get used to being associated with them, okay? It's no different than, say, going to Africa and seeing a bunch of pygmies and, you know, looking at those people for a while, and then, you know, this is a little different than that, but it's the same situation where you're seeing something that's a little bit different than us sitting in this room, you know, talking right now, with their features and their makeup and that kind of thing.
The conclusion that I have made from this is kind of a tentative conclusion, and it's in several parts. Number one, the United States Air Force is interested in any foreign objects that are invading our skies. They would be foolish if they did not conduct a serious investigation of what appears to be superior technology in order to do an estimate of the situation. That's point number one. Number two is, over a period of time, they could have progressed quite far in this study of this technology. Far enough that I believe brings us around to point three, and that is you recruit your best minds from where? The aerospace industry, to work on highly classified, or what they call black projects, in order to see if we could duplicate or develop this technology for ourselves. Because what every military wants is superiority, an advantage over the enemy. And of course, this kind of technology would offer us an incredible advantage over almost any enemy, at least that could be found on Earth.
Was extraterrestrial technology already used for secret military projects?
I think it's entirely possible. The sources I have say that that's the reason that we were studying alien hardware in the first place. Wreckage from Roswell and other crash sites is so we can figure how it worked and have a military advantage over our adversaries. Could be the Black Manta, could be the Aurora, could be stealth technology. One of the things we learned in Russia is that they were studying UFOs for incorporation into their stealth program, and they also studied UFOs for incorporation into their SDI program. So it was going on there, chances are very good that it was going on here as well.
The piece of UFO lore or information that really sticks the closest to home was a letter from a very close friend of mine who wrote a letter to Ben Rich. Ben Rich is the retired president of the Lockheed Advanced Development Company, the people that brought you stealth, that brought you the SR-71, the U-2. Ben was asked, in a letter, do you believe in UFOs? And he wrote back to my friend that yes, both Kelly, referring to Kelly Johnson, the founder of the Skunk Works, and I are firm believers in UFOs. Well, this got John Andrews very, very excited, so he wrote another letter back to Ben. Said, please explain, please clarify. We're talking about two categories of UFOs, both man-made and extraterrestrial. And Ben wrote back again on his letterhead, handwritten, which you have a copy of, saying yes, UFOs do exist, both man-made and extraterrestrial, and we refer to them as unfunded opportunities, and he underlines the UFO.
Are these super secret test flights with recovered UFOs for real? Do U.S. government scientists really investigate extraterrestrial technology? We wanted to find out the truth, test the claims. Following Bob Lazar's recommendation, we drove out to the Black World on December 2nd, 1992, together with an ABC television camera crew. First, we waited near the black mailbox at the Groom Lake Access Road. Then, followed by a black unmarked Ford Bronco of the Wackenhooth Special Security, we changed our location to the Campfire Hill, an elevation on the roadside, closer to the base. It was a Wednesday night, and shortly after sunset, at about 6:15 p.m., the first mysterious flying objects appeared.
Fall down, stop blowing. You know a signal flare, military signal flare?
Groupie, I got it on tape.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't know.
There it is. Heads up, there it is. I don't know, maybe.
Now it's gone.
flares, aerial maneuvers, or test flights of extraterrestrial spacecraft? One thing is sure. Their flight characteristics were more than unconventional. Our eyewitnesses were convinced.
I saw, well, right over the horizon there, as most of us said so far, I saw a light come up over the horizon, probably a few degrees over the horizon, and it broke into first 2 lights, then 3 lights, and then it seemed to string them all together, kind of like a string of pearls or beads. And there seemed to be a connection as the light jumped from one position to the next, and it was kind of an orange-yellow color. And it seemed to be sort of swirling around at the same time. It wasn't a straight directional thing. It's kind of like they were going like this a little bit, you know.
The first thing that was interesting we saw along this ridge out here were a series of white blinking lights that seemed to be, as we looked through binoculars, the same light or several lights that were moving real rapidly around the sky, blinking. Very unusual.
All right.
Yeah.
The one that seems to be attracting the most attention is the one we saw out that direction that had a strange color and seemed to split. Describe that one for me.
Yeah, well, it was an orangish red light that was rather intense, and it seemed to split off into different pieces at one point and come back together again. And I think that was the most interesting aspect of that. We've seen a lot of interesting things tonight.
What was that they saw in the skies above Nevada? We'll try and have some answers next. A big UFO convention came to an end in Las Vegas last night, and afterwards, naturally, some of the members went out in the desert to search for UFOs. A news crew went along, too, and sure enough, it wasn't long before a mysterious, unidentified object appeared. Not too surprising, somewhere up there, you see it, because this patch of desert is right near a military test site. This looked like no aircraft lights that any of these folks had ever seen.
This was a bona fide UFO sighting?
I think it was, yeah. And UFO means unknown flying object, and this definitely was nothing I've ever seen before.
Was it a bird? Was it a plane? Was it the Aurora, the secret plane? We don't know. More to come, I'm sure, and the Air Force is not saying anything as usual.
Oh, fascinating. You have a good weekend, of course, all of you. Good night, everybody.
Maybe it's just a question of time before the secret of the black world will be revealed. The answer on our questions, still hidden behind these mountains, might turn out to be revolutionary for all of us.